daring, debaucherous, and a party behind every stage. Rock and roll wouldn't be what it was without the women who hung with the bands. But even some of the best-known groupies faded away with little to no acknowledgement. In a 2019 TV interview, Connie Hamzy recalled,
"I was determined to become a famous groupie."
And she did just that. She attended almost every rock concert that came through Little Rock, Arkansas in the 1970s and beyond. She also provided intimate entertainment for a great many of those musicians and their roadies.
She claims to have had sex with more rock stars than you can shake a drumstick at.
When she was 15, she had an encounter with Steppenwolf drummer Jerry Edmonton. The first on a list that she says includes Keith Moon, John Bonham, 2/3 of Rush, Don Henley, both Van Halen brothers, Huey Lewis, Peter Frampton, all of ZZ Top, Neil Diamond, most of Kiss, Dan Fogelberg and his manager, and the Allman Brothers. Hamzy was immortalized in Grand Funk Railroad's 1973 hit We're an American Band with the lines, "Sweet, sweet Connie do interact. She had the whole show and that's a natural fact." Hamzy eventually retreated into private life, and when she died in August 2021, Little Rock's Arkansas Democrat-Gazette tentatively reported the death. The funeral home didn't wish to be quoted and referred media to Hamzy's parents, who had both died years earlier. The relatives made reference to Hamzy's death on social media. Her cousin, Rita Ann Lawrence, said, "Connie was a character. She was very colorful. She was always in the news." Hamzy was 66 years old. In Legs McNeil and Gillian McCain's punk oral history Please Kill Me, Sable Starr said she was a young troublemaker when she attended her first rock show in Hollywood at the behest of a friend. Among musicians, she was known as a baby groupie who'd use a fake ID to get into shows at venues such as the Whiskey A Go-Go and Rainbow Bar and Grill. Starr reportedly lost her virginity to Randy California of the band Spirit, and by the age of 16, Starr was a regular companion to Iggy Pop, Johnny Thunders of the New York Dolls, and David Bowie. She also had encounters with members of Roxy Music and the Jay Giles Band. Sable Shields, that's Sable Starr's real name, eventually settled in the Reno, Nevada area where she lived with her partner and 2 children. For the last 16 years of her life, she worked at a local casino resort. Starr died from a brain tumor in April 2009. She was 51 years old. While still in high school in La Jolla, California in the late 1970s, would-be model and actor Tawny Kitaen dated Robin Crosby, a member of the band Phenomenon. She and Crosby moved in together when she was 15 or 16 years old, and she worked as the band's stylist and hairstylist. When Phenomenon evolved into Rat, Kitaen posed for the covers of their first 2 releases, Rat EP in 1983 and Out of the Cellar in 1984. Kitaen and Crosby split up in the mid-1980s, and she began a relationship with Van Halen's tour manager, Pete Angelis. It lasted 3 years, during which time Kitaen began an acting career, appearing in Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks and in the iconic video for Here I Go Again, a #1 hit for Whitesnake in 1987. Soon after, she married Whitesnake lead singer David Coverdale and starred in 3 more Whitesnake videos. The marriage lasted 2 years. In May 2021, the Office of the Orange County Coroner told media outlets that Kitaen died at her Newport Beach, California home. An autopsy showed that she died from heart disease, exacerbated by hardened arteries and prescription drug use. Tawny Kitaen was 59. Elvis Presley emerged as one of the first real rock and roll superstars in the 1950s. And Presley associate Tura Stana also made history as one of the first rock and roll groupies. The Japan-born, Chicago-raised Stana modeled nude and worked as an exotic dancer. In her routine, she danced and stripped with a Buddha statue. The act transfixed Presley, and they began a physical relationship. In an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle, Stana recalled, "He was a very considerate lover and the old-type Southern gentleman. She claimed he proposed marriage, and she said no. But when Presley did marry, he reportedly urged wife Priscilla Presley to adopt Stana's beehive and ponytail hairstyles and thick eye makeup. Stana later carried on a relationship with former baseball superstar Joe DiMaggio after the end of his marriage to Marilyn Monroe. In 1965, she starred in cult classic B-movie Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill.
Sounds like my motor being revved up, which makes twice today.
Stana's manager confirmed that her client died on February 4, 2011. The former groupie and actor died of heart failure at a Reno, Nevada hospital at the age of 72. At age 16, Cathy Smith left school in her home in Burlington, Ontario. In a bar in nearby Hamilton, she saw a performance by a band called the Hawks, whose members would later find success as the band. Smith connected with multiple Hawks, including Rick Dango, Levon Helm, and Richard Manuel. At age 17, Smith gave birth to a baby whom she placed into adoption. She claimed the child was Helm's, which he denied. Smith then carried on a tumultuous 3-year-long affair with married singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot. Afterward, while singing and writing for Hoyt Axton's band, she started taking drugs like cocaine and heroin. She moved into dealing to celebrities, including John Belushi. It was Smith who injected Belushi with the heroin and cocaine that led to his fatal overdose at the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Hollywood in 1982. Smith was questioned and released by police, but was charged after a damning interview with the National Enquirer in which she said, "I killed John Belushi. I didn't mean to, but I am responsible." Smith pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and drug charges, served 15 months in prison, and was deported back to Canada. In September 2020, the British Columbia Coroner Service informed media outlets that Smith had died of undisclosed causes on August 16th in the town of Maple Ridge. After suffering from health issues for years, Smith died at age 73. Better known by the nickname derived from her artistic pursuit and groupie-adjacent hobby, Cynthia "Plastercaster" Albritton was immortalized in Kiss's 1977 song Plastercaster. In 1968, inspired by her art classes at Chicago's University of Illinois, she approached Jimi Hendrix backstage and asked to make a plaster reproduction of his reproductive anatomy. He was the first of many. Using dental molding compound, Albritton cast dozens of rock star genitals, including members of the MC5, the Dead Kennedys, and Journey. And in case you're wondering, she used whatever means she had at her disposal to ensure her models were at full attention. She'd later exhibit her work at art galleries and in a documentary. After a decades-long career as a celebrated one-of-a-kind rock music side character, Albritton returned home to Chicago. She died in April 2022 from an undisclosed illness. Albritton was 74. In 1964, 15-year-old Judith Peters left her family home for San Francisco, changed her name to Miss Mercy after Don Covey's song Mercy Mercy, and started to dress in a Victorian fashion, inspired by her friends in a band called the Charlatans. Within a year, she was hanging out with the likes of Brian Jones and Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, and soon became close friends with Christine Furka, an employee of Frank Zappa. When Zappa met Mercy, he added her to a band he was putting together. That band, Girls Together Outrageously or the GTOs, consisted of 7 women, all of them big players on the LA groupie scene of the late 1960s and early 1970s. Mercy appeared on the GTOs' only album, Permanent Damage, and then resumed hanging out and working with rock stars including Graham Parsons, Jimi Hendrix, Arthur Lee of Love, and guitarist Shuggie Otis, to whom she was briefly married. In July 2020, Pamela DeBar announced on her Instagram account that her friend, bandmate, and fellow ex-groupie Miss Mercy had died. The former Judith Peters had been ill for years before dying at the age of 71. On the day of her high school graduation in 1967, Christine Furka set out for Hollywood and wound up part of a loose collection of artists in the Laurel Canyon neighborhood.
California was like this legendary paradise.
With fellow groupie Pamela DeBar, she became part of a roving support dance crew called Vito's Dancers. They played parties, clubs, and gigs around Los Angeles, which led to a job as housekeeper, secretary, and nanny for Frank Zappa and his family. When Zappa put together the GTOs, a supergroup made up entirely of well-known groupies, he included Miss Christine. Among Miss Christine's other 1970s musical connections, she inspired Alice Cooper, appeared on the album art for Zappa's Hot Rats and Todd Rundgren's Runt, and dated singer-songwriter Arthur Brown, Russell Mael of Sparks, and David Robinson of the Modern Lovers, whom she was visiting in Massachusetts at the time of her death. Born with a spinal deformity that led to a number of health issues, Miss Christine was outfitted with a corrective body cast in 1972. Just after it was removed, she was found dead from a drug overdose, likely a mixture of pentobarbital and quaaludes. Miss Christine was 22. In Bill Janowitz's 33 1/3, The Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street, Barbara Cope, aka the Butter Queen, is remembered by rock legend Keith Richards. She did loads of wonderful things with butter, but what exactly? She gave an answer in a 1987 interview on The Oprah Winfrey Show.
Well, my answer to that is those who know, and those who don't wish they did.
During that same interview, it came out that David Cassidy claimed to have been with 2,000 women. Winfrey then asked Cope for her number.
Oh, we're probably neck and neck.
Cope began her groupie life in 1965 at shows in her hometown of Dallas, then moved out west. She toured with Jimi Hendrix, Traffic, and Joe Cocker, and spent time with members of the New Riders of the Purple Sage, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones. When Led Zeppelin played Texas in 1973, singer Robert Plant asked the crowd about the whereabouts of the Butter Queen. Around that time, she appeared on the cover of Buddy magazine, billed as Dallas's leading groupie, and inspired a line in the 1972 Rolling Stones song Rip This Joint. Down to New Orleans with the Dixie Dean, across to Dallas, Texas with the Butter Queen. After living large for a few years, Cope left the music scene at the age of 22 and retired to private life in Dallas. In January 2018, Cope's home caught fire. Authorities found her body near the front porch. Barbara Cope, the Butter Queen, was 67. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP 4357.